Now we are having Mr. Omar Salama from ITWorx. He is the innovation officer. He will be telling us about the lessons learned from running IP management in ITWorx.
I would like to remind people that parents can be displayed on the display over there. You have to #. This is where you have double code over there.
Hello everybody, my name is Omar Salama. I graduated from the GUC, the German University of Cairo, about 2 years, 2009. I worked in ITWorx as a business intelligence software engineer for 1 year. And then I moved to a very interesting career, which is the innovation management. I worked as an innovation officer. And this really has a very special, interesting story. I'm going to share with you today. And then we actually at ITWorx worked on applying innovation practices for about 1 year from now. From the beginning of 2011. Anybody can hear my voice when I'm talking right now?
هو حتى لو الناس سمعت انت لازم تمسك الميكروفون عشان التسجيل.
So basically I've been 1 year till now applying innovation practice inside ITWorx. And we actually out of this 1 year we can say that we learned it the hard way. We learned many lessons learned for applying these innovation practices. Very sharing this with you today, inshallah, because of two main objectives. First, to avoid the mistakes that we have taken. I'll try to disclose as much as I can, inshallah, today. Second is to really begin from the point that we reached, because in a couple of minutes I'm going to mention this in detail. What's the real problem that we faced at the very beginning that was really much theory and less practical. But before I begin, I want to begin with a story, or an example actually. Okay, anybody have used this symbol before? Please raise your hands. I believe the majority have used it before. This symbol that has changed the life of billions of people on Earth, and hundreds of thousands of businesses around the globe expressing their love or their like for a specific symbol or business or etc. The story behind it was these 4 guys working at Facebook. These 4 guys came up with the idea of the like button from one session called the hackathon. The hackathon was an internal innovation competition inside Facebook for about, they made hackathons for about 2 days. They closed the company and people just work on ideas, prototypes, they pitch these ideas, and then these ideas could become into products. So these 4 guys were doing their daily job and they really did a great idea that changed the world. Fortunately, these guys are not the only ones. This one is called Paul Wacher. He's working, he was working as software engineer inside Google. And as you know, Google has a model of 20 and 80%, so that any employee working as 80% of his time in the core business of Google, 20% of his time in the innovation or any ideas that he came up with. And this guy actually came with the idea of Gmail that's used by millions of people around the planet right now. This guy, again, is working at Google. He's called Krish Harana. In the phase of 2001, he was very willing to monitor the news from different sources. So again, he came up with an idea that evolved eventually to Google News, the product that's used by millions of users around the earth. Finally, this guy, I think you know, is Bill Smith. He was working in Motorola. Again, he was a mid-level manager. And he came up with the idea of Six Sigma, the concept that saved Motorola this year billions of dollars, and it was widely adopted by many people around the earth. What's the message here? The message here is simply the following. Ordinary employees doing their daily job, and they came up with ideas that changed the world. This simply could be anyone sitting in this room, anyone in your company, even the office boys, by the way. And because of that fact, we made a pause here. And we came from about 1 year thinking about this. What do we really need to do inside ITWorx, my company? And by the way, ITWorx is a professional services IT consultancy company. 80% of its business is professional IT services. Its market is US, the Arabian Gulf, Europe, etc. And 20% of its business is products that we sell, by the way. So we made a pause here and we thought about it a little. What do we need really to do in order to have innovation inside the DNA of our company, running inside the blood? Not really some kind of initiative that runs at the R&D lab or some ideas that comes to the top management, but to be able to capture any awesome ideas that comes from any of our employees, evaluate these ideas and build upon it into great products, services, strategies, etc. Ideas are everywhere. They could be transmitted easily into value. The real issue is that they are like this thing. I really don't know its name in English, but its name in Arabic is bujihat. Spark, exactly. So what's the basic mission of Spark? Exactly. Start the whole process, but without having the complete system inside the car will not move at the end of the day. And that came up to the point that we, after some research, we met in innovation, we came up with the concept that we need really to have some sort of innovation ecosystem inside our company. Not really some percentage to the employees to work on crazy ideas or just an innovation process, but we really need to build a complete holistic view of an innovation ecosystem, clear strategy and vision, budgeting, training, culture, tools, processes, etc., etc., etc. So the story really began very simply. As I told you, I was working as a BI engineer, and then I started reading some books about innovation, some blogs about innovation, some nice, really LinkedIn groups, and so on. And I came up, alhamdulillah, with some vision for how can we build this innovation ecosystem inside ITWorx. I pitched the idea to the management company, the management team of the company. They were very flexible actually, and they absorbed the term. And then eventually I started to work on innovation from this point, completely dedicated to innovation until that point. So, as I told you, we have been through a year trying to build that ecosystem. Many experiences in the strategy part, the budgeting, the training, the resource allocation, how we need to evaluate ideas, the innovation tools, idea management tools, etc., etc., etc. We came up with really hard way learning lessons that I want to share with you today, inshallah, and hear your questions as well. But before I begin, I will pass by each component of that ecosystem gradually, inshallah. But before I begin, I want to expose to you a sample innovation cycle inside our company through pictures. That was a real life example for an innovation cycle that happened inside our company. So that I will be referring to this example as I'm moving inside this. Okay, so first we have a strategic area that we want mobile apps for students. We have a major area inside ITWorx, a major section which is education. We provide education products. And the strategy, the mobile strategy for this product, we're willing to have mobile apps for students. So that was the trigger. So we thought, how can we transform this challenge into opportunity? So we thought of having an innovation competition across all the company, asking the employees for really cool apps for mobile apps for students. So we began here the communication campaign. We started posting such mysterious posters all over ITWorx. It's just a poster that shows that something will happen on July 5th. No one knows what will happen, just a trigger. And then on July 5th, we announced the company-wide competition that we want killer mobile apps for students. And we just described the process very easily. People should have submitted an idea or an idea submission template. And the first 20 ideas will transfer to the second round. And then the second round will pitch their ideas in front of the evaluation committee and so on. And really there will be cool prizes for the winners. And we actually announced these prizes as iPad 2, 3 iPad 2 for each team, that for the team that wins the first. And the second, third places were having some sort of pension vouchers. We had this placed in the entrance of ITWorx. Anybody entering the company could see that banner for the announcement of the competition. We have more posters all over ITWorx as well announcing this. We have made a dedicated website for announcing the procedures of the competition so that people can refer to the website and read the rules and download the content and so on. We have a template ready for the employees to submit their ideas. The template we're asking very simply about the one-line pitch for the idea, summary for the idea, and actually there's a very interesting point here that I'm going to refer forwardly. One line for the business aspect of the idea, how this idea is going to monetize. This is a very interesting thing I'm going to tackle lately, that we are directing our employees gradually to think about the business context, because really most of the engineers and so on think basically about the technical part of the idea. So that was the idea submission sheet. We provided prototyping tools for the employees to make fast experiments, build fast products with these really, as you can see, stenciled to the iPhone, so they can build and they can pitch that idea. And actually, there was the surprise. At first, we didn't expect more than 30 ideas from the whole company. We had 82 different awesome ideas from employees around ITWorx from all around the world. I mean it literally. People from Saudi, people from America, all of these were sending us. This is a sample images for the employees who have submitted ideas. We have these ideas. We began to evaluate these ideas through an idea evaluation sheet. As you can see, there are here in the columns there are criteria, and they were rated on a scale from very high and so on, and there is a score at the end. There was an evaluation committee rating these ideas. We've chosen out of these 82 ideas about 22 ideas. These are the top 22 ideas, and then we began to move to the next phase for these 22 ideas. We got those guys, and we gave them a mini training about some further business aspects, and gathered these folks into the annual event of ITWorx to present in front of all ITWorxians, where all ITWorxians would have the ability to vote on these ideas, and actually this would be a really nice recognition for the efforts of these guys. I'll excuse you just to look at the time. Okay. So what happened lately that we have designed a special program for these guys. These guys have special mentorship sessions with the CEO, talking about the idea and the business aspect and the technical aspect, how to develop it more and so on. This is one photo for this. We have learned them some concepts about the business model innovation, what's the business model elements, how to businessify their idea, if we can say about this. We learned them how to make a great pitch. We have exposed them to many lessons for great pitches from TechCrunch and so on. And finally, we had these guys in the ITWorx annual event pitching their ideas in front of the evaluation committee that, as you can see, included Ryan Amin and other people from judges from the company. And then we gathered them all on the stage, and finally we announced the winners in front of all ITWorxians, and it was really, really a very exciting experience for all our employees and stakeholders and so on. After this, we began actually the very interesting part, which is the execution part of those awesome ideas. This is the photo of the winner team sitting with the general manager of education department and really discussing the incubation model for this idea. Well, one of the things very interestingly about what's happening right now inside this competition is that we're really having very concrete attempts for building a co-ownership model between these guys who came up with the idea and ITWorx, so that they can have some sort of revenue share from the profits from this idea. They can be promoted, for example, in their positions and so on. With these guys, we are really beginning to transform them sort of entrepreneurs who can build their company and so on. So we currently have one idea already in the roadmap, began the development. One idea, full investment incubation, we are currently investigating its incubation model. And two other ideas, semi-investment model, we are currently discussing this, by the way. So referring back to the ecosystem, I will now begin to talk about each component of these. What are the challenges that we face in each component, and what are the lessons that we have learned that we really hope that you do not do the same mistakes that we did, and you build on the nice experience that you have as well. Okay. I'll try to do this as sort of quickly, because there are many actually, and I have just about 15 minutes. But please, if you felt that I am a bit fast, just okay. So, first part is the very interesting part, and the most important part is the strategy and vision. Well, basically, it's very important to have a clear strategy what you need from innovation. And that was a theoretical part that we read in the books, but on the ground, I really mean that you just decide what are the areas that you are really interested to invest in terms of innovation. And for example, inside ITWorx, we developed the concept of innovation areas that we sit with the management team, for example, and decide Okay, for example, this is the mobile area that we need to develop in. We need to invest our innovation efforts in the new products or the existing products. Do we need to take care of the internal efficiency or the social media or so on? So this is step one that you need to define. What are the areas that you need to direct your innovation efforts in? Let me just disclose this to you. We tried to do this at the very beginning of the innovation initiative, but it wasn't really that successful. We are revisiting this again after 1 year, and again it's a bit challenging. And this is something that it's really valuable to disclose right now, that designing your innovation strategy is not that straightforward, because you will be faced by really a bit of internal debates, whether we need to invest in internal efficiency or external products or so on. But there is a couple of lessons that I want to disclose here. First, it's very important to engage the management in putting this strategy. Never ever do the strategy in the innovation officer office right now, because there is a very simple fact that the person responsible for innovation in your company, typically, I'm talking about ITWorx, basically, is just a facilitator at the end of the day. He's not the guy who's going to execute that strategy. He's just piecing all these pieces together. He's just directing the other guys in the company, the products, the marketing, and so on, to really execute that innovation strategy. So, first lesson, be engaged with the management team effectively. Always expose the success stories, always take their opinions and so on. Because one of the issues that we faced here is that we lost the engagement of some of the management team because we were not directly engaging with them on a frequent basis. Talking about strategy and planning and so on, this is a very important part, but there is really another important part, which is that you should go on the two parallel paths. First is planning, this long-term strategic thing, and the other is the quick wins part. One of the things that we regret actually is that we could have spent a bit more time on planning and studying and so on in the early phase, but really the thing that clicks with the management team and all the company is to do a quick win. That you go, make for example a small ideation, come up with some of ideas, try to implement them, easy ideas, not really complex ones, and show the outcome of these ideas to the management and the whole team, and do some emails that you have shown right now. This quick win will really make you understand the real life experience that you're going to build your planning upon. This is a very important part, by the way. The most important lessons that we have learned were from those quick wins. Just get to the ground, launch an innovation campaign, and see how people interact, see what fits your culture, and so on. So that was basic for the strategy and vision. This is an image for something called the innovation board. At first, I tried to sketch all our vision. What do we really need to make in terms of innovation? This board basically highlights the components. So for example, you can find a component for strategy, component for vision, component for measurements, innovation portal, leadership, etc., etc., etc. I used this board at the very beginning to really make some visits to the management team and different stakeholders in the company to align them with what we really want to achieve, and at the same time take their feedback. This is very important, by the way. Some of the issues that I've read through books and actually experienced in ITWorx specifically, that some of the management team that we didn't make such visits to were not that engaged in the model after this. So that's one example that I've read. Second thing is the budgeting. Well, let's say a really hard fact that we have learned, and I think most of us are facing. Getting ideas is really the easiest part in the process. We can generate 100 ideas in 10 minutes when you are sitting here. The most tough exercise is really putting effort in this thing. Baseline, if you want to achieve, one of the things that will really affect your innovation effectiveness is to assign budget and resources to the innovation initiative. By default, companies like us who are services, mainly services-driven companies, design their budgets so that to meet the lines or achieve the effectiveness and so on. There is usually no big room for additional resources to work on new ideas and so on. If we made an exception for the R&D team, of course. So as I said, the most important is the resources allocation and budget. Ideas is this part. At ITWorx, we are currently designing our budgets to be per departments. Okay, there are basically two models here. Either you have a centralized budget that each department, for example, the services, the marketing, and so on, can take that portion on innovation projects, or you actually give a certain portion from the beginning to each department so that they are free to work on innovation projects on this. This actually makes it easy for these guys to have a pipeline or a space to really provide resources to work on new things and so on. Budget for what? Budget for experiments, training, marketing, consultancy. We'll talk about the notion of experiments in a couple of minutes. It's a very important notion, by the way. Okay. Another thing is the execution. Again, as we said, it was the toughest part. And actually, our attempts towards to move from the ideas to the execution part have passed through different phases. But we've come to a very fact that we need to very focus on running experiments, not really the full implementation of ideas. Because when you have someone coming up with an idea, it's a hypothesis at the end of the day. You're not sure of this, if this will gonna click or no. So innovation is by definition risk. You're taking risk of exploring new ideas. But if you really want to de-risk that huge risk, you need to run experiments. And that's one thing we're doing actually now in ITWorx. Experiments, we train people to make them fast, low cost, low effort. So for example, some employee came up with the idea for a mobile app. Okay, we're not going to fully launch this or fully implement this. We're going to make some market survey, for example, on a group of customers, seeing their feedback and so on, making a prototype, making it visible to other customers and so on, taking feedback, and really trying to ensure that this idea is valid from a market standpoint of view. So these are examples from the prototyping tools that we are using to visualize the ideas and show it to customers and so on. This is an image for an experiments template that we're using inside ITWorx. We generally ask the winning ideas or the idea winners to submit a summary of their ideas, the expected outcome, the expected time that they need to run this experiment. We always direct our employees to run these experiments in small intervals of time. In about 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 month maximum. It shouldn't be that long. It shouldn't be that lengthy. The expected outcome of the experiment and so on. Coming to the third part, actually, it is the resource allocation. Again, it was very challenging for us to come to this part. Basically, why? Because at the beginning of each year, the default is allocating resources to projects that we know upfront. But usually, in services companies or many companies, there is no room, as we mentioned before, to allocate resources to work on innovation projects or new ideas. So that was a real challenge that we faced. One of the problems that we faced is that, okay, we came up with really nice ideas. One of the innovation campaigns that we run generated about 140 ideas, which was about the top 20, and we started designing the experiments for them and running them. We were faced by the issue that those resources who are going to run the experiments are already booked on another tasks on their projects, and daily projects. They couldn't execute effectively. And that's actually one lesson that we learned hard. And again, and the reason for this is that currently in our strategic planning, we are asking the general managers or the department heads to have space for this, to consider this in their planning and in budgeting and so on, because really this is a very important part, to have a space for resources working on new ideas. And again, I'm referring back to the quick wins thing here. The best way that we have learned, and probably that you are going to learn, is by really getting to the ground fast. We are tackling the topic of resources early at the beginning of the year, and we are telling people, I was telling the people, we need to have resources, work on innovation and so on, but it wasn't that clear why you need these resources, what are the type of activities that they're going to use. But actually after the ITWorx mobile contest that they've shown you for a couple of minutes, it was very clear why you need resources right now. Because these resources need to work on so and so and so, and because we faced the issues 1 and 2 and 3 and so on. So again, we are repeating the lesson, get to the ground fast, try to practice the innovation methodologies fast, and come up with lessons and build on these stories your demand for resources and budget and so on. Am I out of time? Okay. Sure. Okay. The measurement again is a very important part, and it's a tricky part, by the way. It's well pretty known for the people, the notion of if you can't measure it, you can't actually decide whether it's right or wrong and so on. And this is very important, but there is a very critical trick here right now. We have here people, companies on two extremes. Either people who actually are very strict and they are very keen on having, seeing the ROI exposed clearly from the first days of innovation, and that actually kills innovation. I will mention why in a couple of minutes, and others who don't really measure innovation in any manner. We need to, in ITWorx, what we have just done, we have actually passed the 3 phases. The first phase, the first year that passed, we were very keen on building the buzz around innovation. Get people love innovation, participating in innovation projects, accessing the website, submitting ideas, submitting comments, interacting, knowing the innovation process. That was our very basic goal, and I believe this should be the goal for any company, to build the momentum for innovation. Next is you can really, after this, tackle or have your objective measuring the ROI out of the innovation. If you have your objective measuring ROI from year one, you will face by the very fact that you have just faced actually, the people do not know the innovation process, they don't love the innovation process, they are not really engaged in the manner that you want. So basically, you have our first year measuring our success in building that culture. Second, we are very interested in measuring the number of experiments that I mentioned in a couple of minutes. Third, we should be, after this, interested in measuring the ROI that comes next. This is an example for one of the dashboards. By the way, I'm going to tackle this also in a couple of minutes. You can really use very cheap tools in running your dashboards. It's not a necessity to have really complex innovation tools at the very beginning to collect ideas and build upon them. We actually spent a really huge effort comparing between idea management tools in the market and globally and trying to buy one of them, and they are a bit, or actually relatively expensive and so on, but I actually discovered that it's not that important in that phase. The most important thing is building the culture, building the process, getting people inside innovation, and you can actually use scriptures like this, and as we saw in the evaluation sheets. Reward and recognition quickly is a very interesting part which motivated people to work on innovation projects inside ITWorx. The recognition is, by the way, we discovered that it's more important than rewarding, physical rewards, I mean. To recognize people, whether they are leaders or the people who submit ideas or people who are actively participating in innovation projects, put their photos on banners, for example, sending mass emails with their names and so on, giving them whether small rewards for the ideas that submit are really beneficial. And one of the hard lessons that we learned here is that rewarding is really double-edged. Let me mention to you an example. In the last competition that we were talking about, which was the ITWorx Mobile, the first reward was an iPad 2 for each member in the winning team. The winning team was maximum by 3 members, okay? There was an issue right here, okay. There was an issue right here that there was a bit of allergy or sensitivity between employees when in the competition phase. So if there, for example, there was some claims that others are, for example, cheating or some sort of like this, others were really frustrated from not winning and so on. So take care of this point. Physical rewards are nice to an extent. But on the other side, we believe that mental rewards are much, much important. You can't depend really only on physical rewards. On another note, one of the lessons we learned, that we had an innovation competition at the very beginning. The reward was a BlackBerry, the other was an iPad, the other had really much contribution than the first. So that's one point that we learned again, that to an extent, the physical reward is higher, motivation is higher, but you should take care of the other double edge that we mentioned. This is one slide that we have shown in the annual event of ITWorx. These are guys that have won in innovation competitions, whether they submitted winning ideas or whether they are active participants. And this is another important factor, by the way, to reward people that actively contribute, so that you can build the momentum and the culture that we are talking about. Examples, as we have shown. Training, again, is very important. We mentioned training is important because there was a pattern that we have actually noticed upon this year, that we are faced by the fact, and it could be actually different in our company, that not really a small number of ideas, or we can say the majority of ideas, is not really that innovative. You need to give people some skills and training so that they are triggered to come up with really killer ideas and innovative ideas. And that, one example that I have just mentioned for minutes from these sessions. These guys, after they've taken such sessions, it reflected really in a nice way on their idea, performance, and so on. So these are the mentorship sessions that they have talked about. These are the business model innovation sessions. These are the sessions how to make real pitch. There was another training how to design experiments, another training material that we are currently preparing, how to really come up with creative ideas, how to think outside the box, and so on. This is a very important component. Communication, as I mentioned in a couple of minutes, is very important. This is a snapshot for our, currently we're building this innovation portal. Its basic objectives is to show the current innovation initiatives that's taking place, the ideas that was submitted before and what are their status right now, because you should really keep it transparent, because actually one of the interesting patterns that we've noticed is that people who submit ideas are keeping asking about their status. Okay. Turning your goal posters. Culture is again very important. We made huge efforts with whether the management team or stakeholders to convince them that accepting failure and risk-taking and exploring new ideas is really important, because the nature of the business that most of us are doing is really driven by efficiency and meeting the lines and so on, and it's really sensitive a bit to exploring new ideas. And for that reason, we have always our CEO and VPs exposing these facts and sending these messages to people, whether in competitions or usually that we are welcoming crazy ideas and we accept failure and so on. Managed buy-in, I think it was exposed a bit in the strategic part that we have discussed. Tools and processes. These are example tools that we have used for, it's a bit cheap tool, and we have a couple of free tools from this. Submitting ideas where people can vote up, vote down, submit comments. It's more of social Facebook style, and this was a really, really rich experience because it engaged all the employees in a collective intelligence manner. The evaluation seats that we have discussed. This is sort of innovation process that we are currently documenting that defines the abstract figure of the submitting ideas, evaluation, prototyping, and finally to the full implementation. I finished. I just have a couple of general advices at the end. Let's not get to the ground really fast. It's important to plan and to make strategies and read books and so on, but I really believe personally that the most important part is to get to the ground fast, to really learn real experience from your company. There is an issue with most of the theories stuff that it's designed mainly for the Western culture or the companies in US or Europe, but there is really less literature about the culture that we face in Egypt and the region, etc. Involve stakeholders as much as you can. This is very healthy. Expose success stories always with the management team or different employees. Recognition is more important than rewarding. Set expectations right. Define clear accountabilities. This is very important, by the way. CEO must be directly involved. This gives a huge potential to the innovation project, and as well as the VPs also. Dedicated budget and resources early on. This is, again, rather important. So as you are not faced by the fact that there are cool ideas, but there are no one to work on them. Thank you, and I would like to keep in touch with you, inshallah.
Omar, thank you very much for very nice. Thank you, Omar, for. It's really interesting presentation, very nice slide. However, can you teach me what the lesson you learned from this experience? Because teach me, innovation about teaching.
If I want to teach the most important part,
give me the experience, the lesson learned from the experience.
Okay. So the basic lesson I've learned is launch fast, fail faster. Launch fast, quick wins. Try to get to the ground fast. This is very important. Do not stick with the planning and strategy. However, these items are really very important, but try to get to the ground fast to learn by example.
Very first question as well.
Okay.
Why are you doing this within the company?
Excellent. It's a nice question. Okay. So, yeah. Yeah. Oh, sure.
Basically, the idea of the innovation initiative at ITWorx, and also even the mission of the research team as well, on the same boat, is basically to attempt to build differentiation in our services. We felt for a while that what we are doing is going to be a commodity sooner or later, and you have to differentiate or die. As simple as this. I would assume very little. I don't know the number. Maybe Omar would know, but yeah, not much. I mean, we are going with cheap tools, we are going with cheap stuff, low-cost strategy. Again, it's about changing people's minds, not about buying expensive tools. You can use Excel for evaluating sheets, for evaluating ideas.
If I understood well from Omar, that you have two different teams or two different functions for RT and innovation?
No, that was for the first period in on the transition period, but eventually I became completely dedicated to innovation only.
So it's one team?
Yeah. It's not one team, it's one person actually.
Thanks.
We're all working together for sure.
Any more questions?
It's just a question, it's not directly. When you did this practice, did you feel maybe like the spirits of the employees in the office was a bit more elevated, that they could, it's not كل شغل شغل, a little side window to be creative?
No, actually it wasn't a bit elevated, it was much elevated. There was an awesome spirit, alhamdulillah, spanning all over ITWorx, especially after the latest competition that I just disclosed, this is mobile competition. People were sending many mails, whether to the management team, me, to the participants, that were very excited about what happened, and they are really willing to take part in future competitions and so on. And that's from a side, that's from a point very healthy for innovation, and from another point, we found it really healthy for the company overall. Because some people began, especially in the last period, to feel that they are just doing the daily job on a routine basis. Having this happen made the people feel that they're really a chance to make something having impact to the world. And this is very interesting.
I'd like to mention this one. I mean, I have actually the members of my team won the second prize in the Works Mobile, and the idea we used is the one is going to be implemented. Is that right? I would just like to tell you that they are extremely happy that their idea will be built and have ITWorx with ITWorx brand much more. This gives you much more satisfaction than the prize itself.
And actually, there is a very similar emotions for the guys that we have talked about, that they are currently incubated and they will have, inshallah, model for profit sharing or ownership and so on.
I think one of the things that made your experience inshallah successful to the end is having the CEO, as you mentioned, very much interesting about this. And I think this is the key success factor, or the key starting point to have this successful journey. So what's your advice? How did you manage to convince Wael that this is something important, we need to allocate resources, we need himself to give time to mentor those people?
Excellent. So this is a very nice question, by the way. So I have two advices. First, try to get to the office of the CEO very early on, talk to him, show him some visuals, some graphics, some figures about innovation and so on, get him motivated to that extent. Well, let me just disclose how it just began. So the beginning was not actually with Wael, the CEO, the beginning was one of the strategic meetings of the company, of the annual strategic meetings. I came with a presentation. Alhamdulillah, it was a bit inspiring presentation. And I was having a point in these slides talking about this. Try to expose examples. Try to show the guys, the management team, that there are really many people around the world doing that stuff. And they are generating much profits from this. And they are really, their employees are really having a very enjoyable day-to-day task job. So showing these examples, right, real-life cases and examples and margins and numbers and so on to the management team makes it a bit feel that, come on, it's not a theoretical stuff. There are already much people making this outside, so let's do it. That's number one. Number two, try to expose as much as you can, which is a very important point mentioned by Dr. Tarek. That your cost, try to minimize your costs as much as you can. This is very important. I really don't recall the exact number, but it's really very, very low comparing to other budgets that I've heard about in many companies. We are using very ordinary tools, Excel sheets, as much as we can, making the cycle fast and so on to minimize the cost. So again, get people inspired by real-life examples. Try to take it to the bottom line. and have minimal costs, this inshallah will click with the management team. And again, try to expose the success stories eventually. Whenever there's a success story, share it with the management team and share it with the CEO and so on.
Alright, my name is Garal Hassan. I'm a professor at Cairo University. I'm the director of the Innovation Support Office there. Thank you very much for your presentation. I'm really very interesting. I was particularly intrigued by what you said about the cultural or local aspects of innovation that have not been mentioned in other sources of literature you've looked through. Can I ask you what were the most salient points you felt you needed to focus on, the critical bits that were neglected perhaps or not mentioned by other Western literature as put it? What are the things that we need to focus on here in our very Egyptian culture?
This is really the most important part in our story, which is those aspects that are not mentioned in books. So let me just disclose some examples for you. One example that I am really not embarrassed to disclose, alhamdulillah, we had success, things that we have actually some lessons that we learned, is that sometimes in some of the innovation competitions, we have winning ideas and you have clear accountabilities from the beginning that this specific team is one responsible to proceed with those ideas. And then it actually simply dies. There is really, I want to say something? Okay, so this is a very important cultural aspect that sometimes we make a bit like promises that we don't do at the end of the day. And this is one thing that we need to have clear KPIs, clear measurements for top management, etc., to define what's really need to be delivered, and people should evaluate upon this. This is something. Another thing, which is, I think it was one of the causes of, unfortunately, the education system that we run and the culture that we have grown up with, is that sticking to the safe side. And this is, by the way, shared across all the globe, but especially in the region, it's a bit more playing it safe, sticking to what we know, attaching to the numbers. This is totally, this is very important, by the way, but it's totally opposite to going to explore new areas, having risks, having failures sometimes. You know, one of the really critical issues that we, in most situations, do not accept failure. You need to be the first on the class, the first in school, get 100% in the secondary stage, etc. But so accepting failure and commitment is one of the two key cultural aspects.
I'd like to emphasize 2 points, mainly related to culture and ITWorx. And I think we discussed them together, Omar, at the beginning of this year many times. Firstly, we have a culture that we can start any initiative very strongly, okay? And people get extremely motivated, okay? And after 2 months, all of a sudden, I mean, you get this extreme motivation during the strategic meetings when we all meet together. Yeah, and you are all extremely committed. And after 1 month, everyone goes to his own vertical and his own business and their activities, and that's it. And the whole thing dies. So this is number 1. And the solution is frequent and quick wins. Keep them alert all the time. That is something valuable happening. Something happens every month, every 2 months of value. Doesn't need to be significant, but tell them that there is something happening all the time. So don't keep reading books. People are not going to wait for you. A second thing is cost. The point is that, yes, at the moment when they are extremely excited, again, during the strategic meeting, they are willing to put interesting budget values for your interesting initiatives after looking at a very exciting presentation. But then, after 3-4 months, after everything dies, these are the first things they are going to talk about. So always don't believe what they are saying. Stick to low-cost budgets and look for quick wins all the time till you really build solid foundation and then ask for more. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. I think I want to build on this example. It's a bit like the entrepreneurship VC series. So at the first you get a seed fund, a very small amount of seed, a very small amount of resources. You build a success story. You build upon this success story to get more funding and so on. So that's the notion we are trying to